Welcome to Mama T Energy. I'm Tiara, aka Mama T, and I invite you on a journey to loving your life through stories, channeled messages, and energy work. I love life, and it is my mission to guide you and millions like us to discovering our passion for life. So let's open our hearts and dive in. Today, we are featuring Michelle Coutinho, and she is a transformational leader, teacher, healer, and guide. Her vocal empowerment coaching helps conscious professionals discover their authentic voice, embody their deepest purpose, and own their personal power. Michelle, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
I really appreciate it. It's so sweet. My inner child leapt with joy when you were saying like transformational leader. Like my inner little girl went, yay! It was really funny to watch.
I love it. And you guys that are listening, this conversation has been like some time in the making. I feel like I saw you on Facebook and Instagram, and your singing just has been speaking to me. So I just was like, I have to get Michelle on the podcast. So I'm so grateful to have you here. So I want to know, like, can you just start a little bit with telling us about your journey and where you began your work?
Yeah, the journey is profound, I have to say. My journey is one of humility, really, seriously, truly. I feel like I am being initiated on a very long walk from my spirit guides, my spirit team, my journey with the medicine of ayahuasca, which started in 2012. I am an energy healer who disguises herself as a coach because we're all coaches nowadays. And I know for a fact that I've been priestess and medicine woman in other lifetimes, and Avalonian. I love like the Celtic wheel of the year. But my journey really officially started with spirituality with Ram Dass and Bhakti Yoga, because that was like I learned, and I was like 17 years old, and I'm 15 actually, and my mom gave me Be Here Now. My mom's new agey. And I guess my spiritual journey really started with my parents, because my parents are like archetypal. Like my father is a man who has his own karmic burden, who became an Orthodox Jew when I was like 4 years old. He was always Jewish, but like really got like authoritarian with the Judaism. And my mother's like this priestess hippie, but didn't believe in herself, had a lot of abuse. And so like all these things have woven within me. And then Ram Dass came into my life, and psychedelics, and my own past lives initiations, and my own gifts of psychic development and intuition, which I teach people now. So like long story short, it's like when people are going through awakenings, it's like parts of their soul come back into their bodies and erupt. And sometimes we have magic powers, but they're like X-Men who don't know how to use their powers. So it's like for example, for me, when I was teaching yoga, it was like I would gather, all of a sudden there was a time where I was too sensitive to teach a yoga class, because I would getting all like these entities and energies and attachments. And then like 10 years after that, I finally became somebody who like can clear in a space. And now my work has developed as like a sound healer and a ceremonial space holder, where I kind of merge all these little bits on my path, like things I've learned in ayahuasca ceremony, things I have as a singer. When I was younger, I was in musical theater, so like a voice has always been a part of my life. And in that realm, I have an edge with performance and acting, but not because when it's really vulnerable for you, like your truth, and singing your soul song, and merging the shamanic with like performance. And so just to wrap that thought up, when I talk about humility, that is something that I am really on this fine line walking, because I think my rules are different than everybody else. A lot of people are taught power is hierarchical, top down. They maintain these giant followings. They're made, the mayor of whatever, by the audience is like worshiping them as a being, and everyone's like, you're the best thing. You cough and everybody applauds, yay you, and there's this, it's really top. Not for me. It's like as soon as I waver, like if I'm singing in a way that is about me being like, look how pretty I am, versus like real transmission, because I can feel the difference energetically, like my guides step in right away and kind of smack me. And I think that that's because on a longer path, longevity, I'm being initiated and learning into what it is to be an example of leadership and power that isn't about you, and understanding that when we are a vessel of transmission, we're in service. And in that service, there's a holistic, circular way of being in leadership, servant leadership, that's like raising everyone from the bottom. And my ego over like the last 15 years of doing this has had to be like constantly scrubbed. And I'm still learning, and it's a long walk. So that's the journey that I've been on. Yeah, yeah. And really grateful to my teachers and my guides and my guardians, and also for Ram Dass and all the work that he did to bring higher Eastern philosophy and consciousness to the West, because the West is all about accolades and what you do for achievement. And the Eastern thought is all about being a renunciate and letting go of all of those attachments. And right now we are surrounded by spiritual materialism parading as like actual spirituality, but then it's tied to wealth, and people are really confused, including me. And so I'm navigating all of that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much in your journey and your conversation. I'm like, that resonates, that resonates, that resonates. And so can we dive a little bit deeper into the power of voice? Because that's really like your voice is what brought me into you. And one of my personal mantras is just that my voice activates people. My voice to like is like, I see it as like a tuning fork and just calling people in. And as someone with a musical theater background as well, I also just love singing and performance, and bringing this into spirituality has also been something that I'm grappling with, of like, okay, well, how can I sing more? Where can I bring this? Because people have been telling, like my dad, for example, is just like, when are you going to be on stage again? Like, when are you going to do that? And I'm like, that's beautiful and wonderful, but I don't like the call to, like, I don't know, audition for Rent is not here right now. It's like, I'm here for this spiritual journey. I'm here to be a leader and be like, spiritual celebrity vibes like that. That's where I'm being called. So I would love to hear more on this conversation of opening the voice and tapping into that authentic truth.
Yeah, I will get there in 1 second. I just want to speak to what you said, because that was my journey too. In 2010, I stopped going to acting classes and doing commercial auditions in Orlando, Florida, where I lived, and I became a yoga teacher. And then, though, I left that yoga studio, and because that yoga studio is still probably super popular, but I had like 70 people in a class, and people were crying. Like, this is before I understood. I didn't have ayahuasca until 2012, so I didn't really know about shamanism in the depth of the way of like watching a real shaman actually work, which I already had gifts of clairvoyance. So once I actually saw that, I was like, and not everybody can see in the ceremony. My shaman went up to me and was like, you can see what I'm doing. And I was like, yes, yes, teach me all the things. And I think that's part of the thing. And your journey might be different than mine, because I felt like when this is the same time frame, Gabby Bernstein, it was like 2014, 2013. I went to New York to go see her, and I was like Deepak Chopra, Oprah Winfrey, spiritual celebrity for 10 years. To be honest, this year, 2024, is the year that unraveled for me. I took mushrooms and went to a Tool concert, and my higher self like told me, like, you are not a coach, you are not an influencer, you are a medicine woman, and you need to get your shit together. And this whole year unwound me from the concept of spiritual celebrity, and really understanding, which is the second question of how do you become. And it always was the language, because I feel like our souls always know where we're pointing, but the thing is our environment and our conditioning, and really something that I'm grappling with right now, which is what we're surrounded by in the horizontal. Like, I live in Austin, Texas. Like, everybody wants to be a spiritual celebrity. Everybody, you throw a rock and like hit somebody who's trying to do that, right, with their lives.
Right.
Because there's a payoff. I mean, we're all like, the more celebrity I have, the more money I have, the more people trust me, then my career at XYZ, the more books I sell. I mean, it's obviously like this equals security. But true spirituality isn't about that. And it doesn't mean that you have to live under a bridge or a rock or whatever, but it means that you are straight with what you're with. So I gave a talk at Solar Punk Summit, and it was about what I'm learning always. And it's authentic power. And what is authentic power? And it's the mastery that when the personality is in service to the soul, And that's how I feel. And so we can get into a little bit of like the work that I do, which is a little bit different than other people, because I know voice teachers in town, and a lot of voice teachers, even like really big ones like Maria Stark and like Ayla Nerio. I've been to like workshops, and it really is about using the voice in a technical way, like a muscle, where they use the voice and are like, ooh, which is like, I do those things as well. Those are exercises that do make the, vocal cords muscularly. It's very important that we have access to that. I don't work that way with the voice. I unwind people's like karmic predicaments from them, because we come into this lifetime with an assignment. And that's something that I learned from Ram Dass. We have incarnations, we have souls, and there are contractions and there are expansions. And you know this by being somebody who has been on stage. When we are contracted, we cannot take up space. We cannot let energy as a channel move through us. There are moments when you are on stage singing where it's not you singing. You are a vessel, and light and energy comes, the muses come through you and allow you to be a vehicle for beauty and art, and you become a transmission. And that is what I am up to. And that's what I think not the joke, but the essence of like vocal empowerment, which is what I call my work, is attuning ourselves to the frequency so that we can open to our guides, or whatever you want to call the infinite, to allow ourselves to be used so that more, I see it as our soul, can come through. But what gets in the way of that is the kinks of our personality, which in a yogic way are the samskaras, meaning the things that are our aversions, meaning things we don't like, or our attractions, or like attachments that we're really like, if I see myself like as a very linear person, then being creative and open and not knowing what I'm gonna do next. Like for technical people who are classically trained as musicians, improv is hard for them. But in order to allow yourself to be open to the infinite and God and let yourself be sung through, you don't know what you're doing all the time. So I always trade like skills with people who have like these very technical skills, because I'm not classically trained, but they don't know how to like be wild and primal. And that's the thing that I have on tap, almost to my detriment, because I'm like learning like for me, like I'm learning my email list and newsletter and still getting consistency and being content, like that's not my strong suit. So I'm coming completely from the wild and learning how to be linear and of the world. And a lot of the people I serve, for whatever reason, their parents, their ancestry, their past lives have attachments to this linearity or confined way of being. And they come to me for like these goddess codes of wildness. So like they can show up as their true authentic selves that they were conditioned out of from whatever thing. So I see it as like past lives, our childhood trauma, and our karma all merging, and that creating constriction of like us being able to access the channel. Now, what's interesting in my work is that I don't need to make you go all over the place. I help you somatic practices, like getting like into that like primal space in you, and then moving that energy. And then once you do that, you naturally sing, because your state is natural bliss. The Anandamaya Kosha, the soul body, is like your essence. So if you don't have those things in the way, or those contractions or those fears blocking you, then you will radiate. And then it's just a practice and a presence and of that tuning to wisdom, so that you know who you are devoted to, and like are allowing your prayer to come through you and be an essence of that. And I'm still learning that, because there's this week especially, there's mad resistance. Like it's like sit down and meditate. And I'm like, I don't want to, because I'm a rebel. And like me, who teaches this, still has that edge. So I just like, it's not like glamour, like, oh, I figured it out and blah, blah, blah. It's like we have to wrestle with ourselves constantly to how much we surrender to God, and how much we surrender to this soul self that wants to move through us, because there's also our ego that like thinks it's better on its own, and wants to not allow that to move through us, even though it's like eating your vegetables. Like we know it's good for us, but we don't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did I
This is
answer your question about the voice?
yes, it's like so it resonates so well and it makes so much sense, at least to me it does. And I'm witnessing as you're speaking like how this all like kind of like aligns with my own life. Like right now for me, I can feel like I've been having this like contraction in my like throat chakra area. And as a singer, as someone who goes live all the time, I can even hear it right now as a podcaster, right? Like this like mucus or whatever that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. I'm like, this is not just like, oh, I caught some cold or whatever. There is something energetically within me that's like, hey, we need to work on this voice. We need to work on, what is it like, what are you allowing yourself to channel through, and what are you like, I can see it like, if I go live on Facebook, for example, I know that there are people that have different beliefs than I do. And so it's like, am I watering down my message so it will be better received by everyone who follows me, or am I allowing that full voice to come through? And as I say it, my voice is clearing up. So like I can tell there's like the the difference is there, right? So it's just like I bringing that understanding, okay, this is what's contracting me, this is what's holding me back, and allowing for myself to just be like, I trust, I am surrendering to God. I allow myself use my body and my voice as a vessel to just move it through me so that I can continue to share this message and continue to help raise the vibration of the world around.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I see. One of them is when I work with people, everything that allows us to access that depth and that quality of like roundness in the voice comes from the central column, which is, it's called the Shushumna, but it's really leaning back energetically in the self, which really does allow us to be in a state of receptivity and surrender. And again, the personality is in service to the soul. So the soul self goes forward. And I saw that at the end of what you just shared. It was like you felt wider. I think this being able to hold power and hold ourselves in this wider, that's when we see somebody who's really in their power on a stage, is that they're grounded. That's another piece. And they're also, you and I are practiced at this. And a lot with my clients, or maybe people who might be listening, they might have had some severe traumas, because I just got a vision of that as I'm speaking to that, is like there's people that have come into my coaching that they aren't really even like, they pretty much stop at their thighs. And I need to bring them down past their knees, past their ankles, and like root them into their bodies. And they don't really know what that feeling is because they haven't felt a level of safety in their life journey so far to be able to even anchor themselves into the ground in a certain way. So like that's always a first step. The second piece is this, so people either like are afraid of being fully planted on the earth, or the other escape route that we have is being in our heads. And that was something that you spoke to at the very beginning, which is self-judgment or self-consciousness, which was I worked on for years. Even though I had theater in the beginning, it was like a map to go back to, and I know what it's. I'm such a goofball that I love being on stage and it brings me a lot of joy. But I still, I was bullied in high school and all these things, and there was a lot of contraction that had happened in my life, and even like in the shamanic circle that I was in, the matriarch of that circle, like really manipulated me in a passive aggressive way. So it was like very hidden that I couldn't tell that there was jealousy. Like I was totally naive, and I'm very innocent and like heart open. And I've really had to learn discernment in this lifetime. And also human nature and things that I'm not a strategic person, and I'm not like but like other people are. So that was a whole initiation for me. It was like, whoa, some people are like, they like are out to get you, or they don't want you to succeed, which I had remember experiencing in middle school and high school, but then it like a gap. And then I was like, oh, okay, interesting. This is like present here, especially in spiritual communities, which you wouldn't think like, oh, we're all praying to Shiva, but like you hate me secretly and don't want me. It's like, it's like a really, really important. So then it becomes, and one of my most successful meditations was releasing the witch wound, because then it becomes our ability to stand in our power, even when we feel in the room that there are those like daggers or those jealousies. And that becomes very hard, especially if you're an empath and you're a really sensitive soul, which is like primarily the people that I work with in coaching are like, or the people who like stay in my field for a long time are really like heart open and like smushy on the inside and like want the best for other people. Because there's people who are wired that way, and then there are people who are like naturally competitive and like really do that whole thing where they climb on you to try to get to where they're going. So I guess it's like a selfish orientation or like a holistic orientation, depending on where you're at. And for the holistic orientative people, we can contract because they call it self-worth, but I actually don't buy that it's self-worth. I think that we care so much about the whole, we kind of hesitate and don't really know our place. And so the maturity for me of stepping into my womanhood has been like this willingness to show up in a grounded way in my environment without so much concern of how I'm perceived, and knowing, really having boundaries, I guess, knowing like their emotions are theirs and I can't do that, but then also orienting myself to make sure that I'm in true alignment for myself, meaning like I'm not being a competitive, like, you know, unconscious playing out shadow games that I'm not even quite aware of, but that I'm coming, and this I get reminded of all the time with my guides, coming to be of service and really not making it about me, which has been really the hardest part. But I think it's this path of leadership that I'm actually on, which may or may not mature at some point in this lifetime, I hope, but it feels like when I'm in my 50s, maybe 60s, you know, where it's like, oh, okay, that finally was the reason why you did all this learning this whole time. But anyway, all of that to say, the layers of self-judgment that we have about ourselves, whether it comes from paranoia or just being like, you know, of like not really knowing, or being green, like not being able to be in like, you know, like when you do your first woman's circle and you're new to singing, but you don't really know how to hold the space. The other thing that I work on with one of my clients this week was like her ability to receive power, a woman's ability to receive power and pleasure. You know, that's a whole nother structure energetically that we need to like mature into. And if we have had experiences that have been like strange, that then we need to heal from those, integrate them, and then like practice. Everything's a practice. And then, you know, we can deepen and widen. So it's not like, oh, it can just happen in an instant, or you can just go, woo, and you're vocally empowered now, you know, or you had a voice activation. Because like that one time, it's really, I think our voice is this fingerprint. It's unique to us. It's our soul, it's our medicine. So everything that you're saying about like, I want it to be a transmission that people can heal from, it's based on your own level of inner work that you do, and the depth of that you do, and then the offering that you bring it from. And then there's intention. Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking, but I obviously could talk about this for a long time.
Love it so much. And so shamanism has come up a couple of times in this conversation. So I would love to hear kind of like what is shamanism to you? And then what has been like your experience in connecting for those of us who might be interested in exploring the route but know nothing about it?
Yeah, so I got to be really careful because obviously not a shaman in this lifetime, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, even though I asked, not officially trained by a shaman, but rather shadowed the hell out of one for like 7 years. And what I heard shamanic practices described as one time is that it's using intention, movement, and breath, which I loved, in order to move energy. And the other part of that is the attunement with the natural world. So the elements, which kind of parallels into what I know about the priestess path or witchcraft. It's like the elements 4 or 5, depending on what you're going with, if you're adding the ether and the ethereal or the astral. And then earth, air, fire, water. The other part of the shamanic world that I love is working with allies. So plants, that medicine of herbs, them all having archetypes and personalities, and also jaguar medicine, eagle, which is one of my beautiful totems, raven. All of these allies, I see people's astral identities. So when I talk about past lives and like my coaching practice, like I'll sit with someone, it depends on who the soul is, but I have had experiences where the first call, I go straight into transmission. I'm literally with my eyes closed. And I'm like reading their kind of like their Akashic records. Like, for example, one of my favorite times I did that was with a computer programmer, flat brimmed hat, he goes to Lightning in a Bottle or one of those festivals or whatever, computer programmer, 30-year-old dude. I saw him as like a Shivite temple keeper in India, and I also have this whole tantric bent to me. And so we talked a lot about like ejaculation and like I hope this is okay for everybody.
Sure.
He didn't ejaculate when he had sex with his partner, and there was like just he was so like focused and steady, and he actually didn't know how to receive pleasure and breathe or be in his feminine really at all. And which is funny because it's the opposite problem that other people have, right? And so I got to like kind of parallel that. That came out down like a month and a half after working together. But then when that came out, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. If we're speaking about you being like a very tantric, priest, and then you're not ejaculating, I was like, I could correlate these things and like his astral identity, which I saw from other lifetimes, to like this dude who, again, 30-year-old flat brimmed hat programmer, white kid, like not the same, but seeing somebody's astral identity and then weaving with the complications or the things that they're trying to piece together in their own psyche, I think is so important. And I think that is shamanic to itself, is that we see a world that is beyond the physical, and we see into the astral and the energetic, and we don't disregard it, we listen to it. One time the shaman that I worked with said that there are different rules of the astral plane than we have in the human plane. Like humans have like, we're married, we do this, these are our agreements, etc. And like in the astral world, like you can have many different soul relationships, like for so many different reasons. And I don't know how to do this, but I love the idea that you can open up doorways through song and geometry and ceremony and travel and meet with people and go to different even dimensions, through the astral as well. And I don't know how to do this in a conscious way, but I have had dreams and experiences of doing these things. And I feel like that's all, the shamanic world is, obviously when they do drum journeys, there's the upper world, the middle world, the lower world, and our ability to use our imagination to travel through these places. And so it's a way to alter our consciousness so that we can come into what, the Hindus call like the true world, which this physical world is illusion and Maya, but the true world is the infinite universe.
That's so powerful. I love it. So thank you for sharing.
My honor, in my small, humble way that I understand these things, because I've never really had a teacher like Ram Dass. I have this on my bio on my about page on my website, where it's like a little bit about me, and like I hung out with Ram Dass a lot on Skype in my 20s, and then I went to go see him on that same year that I did ayahuasca at 29, and he looked at me funny, and he was like, "Do you have a teacher?" And then I looked at him funny and was like, "Yeah, you're my teacher." And then he laughed. He like almost fell over. He laughed at me. And then he said, "You're doing really well for being self-taught." And I was like, I know.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I wanted to have like an actual teacher, but it's not, I don't think it's meant to be in this lifetime. I think it's me piecing together things and just having these experiences and kind of gathering wisdom and then turning around and teaching it to whoever is listening to me. Yeah, and I have my guides. I definitely have a team of guides who are very strict with me, and don't really color things in the way that other people's guides do. Like I watch Lee Harris on you know who that is, the channeler? He's
No.
English and gay and fabulous, and he channels a group called the Z's. And one of
Yes,
my
I do know.
guides now, yeah, and one of my guides that I met, he was alive and now he's a guide. He passed over. He's a friend of mine. But he had a group and they had a name, and I'm like, my people haven't personified themselves in any way. They just tell me stop doing this and stop doing that. But it's not like shaming. It's like asking me to be a higher frequency, like the true self versus like my human self, which is something that I wrestle with a lot. Cause like, I'm still like the 15-year-old girl who like took acid and went to raves in Fort Lauderdale as much as I am everything I was just talking about. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
Yeah.
love that. And And saying that, so can you speak on, I guess, connecting with guides? Because I love that you're bringing forward this conversation about it looking different and allowing it to be okay to look different, because I in certain circles I've been in where someone's like, oh yeah, like I channel this and I channel that, and then it feels like, oh well, I'm not good enough because I don't like, like I could feel around kind of going back to that conversation of creating that hierarchy. It's like, oh well, this person can channel, and the conversation around, oh, wait, you all have the same exact power. It just might be on a different frequency, never really comes up. So then we're just left like, we're just not special over here.
I did that. I did that. I did that. I did that. I did that in 2014. Like someone's like, my guide's name is Peter, and this guy's da 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 da, and I was like, ugh. I did get a name from this medium that I worked with, and I really appreciate. I've had two mediums in my lifetime that have really, because I told you I had a friend crossover, which really does change your life. If you know somebody in the physical and then they cross and then act the same way over there and give you enough signs or talk through multiple people and then have the same voice and texture, you're like, okay, I mean, there's a different truth when you're like, I know that I mean, I'm from the Northeast. My family were Italian, New Yorker, Jewish on one side, Italian on the other, New York, Florida, like no BS, even when I moved to
Mhm.
Colorado and have hung out in California in spiritual circles, those people are way more like la 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 la, but like East Coast is like pretty matter of fact. And so
Facts.
there's still that piece of me that was like, okay, yes, I believe in God and the infinite, but maybe who knows, And then
Mhm.
when you have someone cross and like come back, it's like, oh, damn. Like, and not everybody's had that experience, and that's not the experience for everybody. Similarly, I taught a program called Psychic Summer School over the summer, and every person in there has different ways that they access their intuition. And also, it's just like the way that God shows up for each of us is very different. I went and was initiated as a priestess in a whole woman's circle of 30 women, and most of those women who sing those goddess songs really see God through the mother. They really are like, Magdalene is my gateway to the divine. I see God through Shiva. Like, I see God through the divine masculine, not like the white dude in the sky, but like that ancient warrior masculine man, like, is the thing that I worship. I deeply worship and revere that like power. That's my gateway to God. Same thing with our guides. The way that our guides show up to me has a lot to do with our spiritual lineage, sometimes maybe our DNA lineage as well, depending on what incarnation we're taking. Like, I have and people who see me sing, it's very clear that I have Native American energies around me when I'm in transmission. I am not Native American by birth. I'm Armenian, which is like a very, very old, if you go in the ancestry, it's like one of the first peoples, and Italian and ancient Greek and Ashkenazi Jew, and what else am I? And Portuguese. And African, actually 10% African, because the Portuguese, they went to the African and then they went to Brazil, and
Mhm.
so that is my ancestry, which I thought was fascinating, because I sing to Oshun and the Yoruba, and then turns out I actually have like 5% of my DNA from that place, and I was like, how cool is that? So it can come through. So your guides. So for example, these songs, the medicine songs, the songs that people have sang forever, they carry transmission. They work with these archetypal energies, right? Of these like mystical river goddess, etc., and gods and of nature. And sometimes I can access that through my prayer and my intention. But also, I feel some of us come from the stars, and some of us have. I see the astral like tribes, actually, and I think that the other mystery that I have is, I don't think I see it just like we have our world with countries. I think everybody thinks they're doing it the right way. And like, if you go from even like in South America, there's different Amazonian tribes, and they have different traditions of the way that they run a ceremony, and then you go around the street and then they have a different tradition and everybody thinks they're doing it the same way, and I think the guides are the same. So I don't think also, and this is recent, this year I've been thinking about, I wonder if the guides also are on a need to know basis with the ultimate God. I wonder if anybody knows what's going on in the real to real to real. And imagine that like even our higher beings are really just like doing what they know from their higher beings. Maybe the angels are like the highest frequency of consciousness, and then some of us have access to those angelic frequencies. Some of us have access to the whales and those frequencies, or like I said, the jaguar totems or the felines, and like all of these different relationships to our souls. And I think, like for me, I'm super clairaudient, which is
Mhm.
very rare to be able to hear things, which really helps me when I'm doing music and channeling. And so it's like, that gift is here, but that gift started as like hearing weird sounds and like lower astral entities in my 20s, and like not being like, why is that? But then it was awakening and I had to learn how to, it kind of like grew, you know? So it's a weird non-perfect system that we have for attunement, and it's a language and a relationship. So that, to answer your question, finally, it's like once you get a glimmer of what that might look like for you, or you feel like you make contact, you have to consistently practice listening. So another little blurb is, I was mad because everybody's name, Paul, Peter, Mary, whatever, their guides was showing up to them, and they were speaking to them through language that, or you know, and you know, people make up stuff too. So maybe the woman who I was talking to was making this up. Who knows? She ended up being a little weird, so it could have been the thing. So anyway, I'm mad because mom was warning me around 2014 to listen to silence, which is something that I teach about in my programs and have written about. And they would like tap on my head a bit, or feel like a finger in the ear. It was like, but it
Mhm.
wasn't a finger, obviously, but it feel like pressure, or like somebody putting a finger in your ear, and you'd like, I'd go, oh. When I would do readings then for people, I would have to stop and I would have to listen and try to really discern what that vibration, texture, energy, imprint was. And it still happens sometimes. But now I think I'm a little quicker with being able to be like, oh, that means this, or this means this, or hold on, let me listen. So I had to listen to silence. I had to tune to the language that they were speaking to me in. Now, if I described my guides to you, I see them as very old beings, like very ancient beings. It makes sense that they wouldn't be very chatty and that they would make me come to them versus like them be like, hi, I'm Peter, la 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 la, you know, or I'm disease, and like, we're gonna tell you about this now, and da 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 da. Like, that's not what I got, and I had to be okay with that. And to be honest, I have put up quite a squawk, as one of my Native American pipe carrier friends says, about the ways that I am treated and the discipline that I have to attune with. But that's because of where I come from and who they are, and everybody else has their own journey, and they also have their own karma. So people who we're talking about who might have giant audiences and it is all about them and all that, maybe their relationship this lifetime is for them to have that kind of a power, and have them, like, maybe they were super selfless in another life, or maybe it's a test to see how they act when they're given all these things, who knows. But that's the navigation of like different people. And like I said, for mine, it's all about humility and leadership, and how do I make myself transparent and be like a really honest vehicle for transmission to come through, so that my guides can move energy and sync through me and show what power looks like when it's holistic instead of, and healthy, versus you know, sticky. So anyway.
Oh man. Oh, so much goodness in this. Ooh, there was a question moment. Ringing. So
Oh, the
uh,
ringing in the ears.
yes, I would love to hear your thoughts around that.
Is it something, well, oh, I have a funny intuitive question. Do you notice that you have tension in your jaw if you have it happen? Is this personal for you?
two form. So one, I've noticed that I tend to take on, um, for lack of a better word, afflictions that my parents are experiencing,
Yeah.
and within myself. So like my mother has tinnitus and experiences
That in
ringing.
the jaw?
Hum?
No.
She
Is
does
that
have
in the
she experiences ringing, but she also does have like the jaw thing going on. I don't have a jaw issue myself, and I like witness the ringing tends to happen when I am like in that overthinking mode. A lot of times I'll hear a ringing and I'll be like, "Ooh, time to quiet down." But it depends on what side. Like on my left side, I need to like quiet down. If it's my right side, there's like something to pay attention to, and so I just haven't like fully integrated exactly all that information.
you just said that perfectly. How did you discern that?
Listening, like like kind of like what you were just saying of recognizing I need to slow down because as I'm going through my own journey and witnessing kind of, I feel like my parents are like beautifully like mirrors for myself, and so I can easily coach in my mind them knowing that they're on a different journey and they're in a different place in their life spiritually, so they might not be ready to receive that kind of information. But when I am like, I know that these things happen in my body for like a reason and it's telling me something. If that is my belief and that is my knowing, then it tells me to like quiet down. Okay, like, okay, listen, pay attention to the world
That
around
was
you.
beautiful. You kind of answered it better than I could have, to be honest with you. Is like I think that we get it for different reasons. I
Mhm.
also feel, the back of the head, the occipital, like this whole jaw, this area, it's a very permeable area to energy attachments of
Mm.
that are, and also somewhere that we carry tension in our own bodies. When we carry tension, like you were just talking about, sometimes, I mean, gosh, we're always on our phones now. We're always plugged into Instagram. So psychically, there's a lot of imprints that in a truer, more natural shamanic way, if we were more like grounded and quiet, right? Those things of like the tension in the jaw, the spiraling of the third eye, all of those things would not be as intense. And then you discerning like, hey, if it's coming from this side, this means XYZ. Maybe I need to unplug for a moment. Is like your learned experience. You said that so beautifully. I'm so glad. I know that people are going to be benefited from that because that's exactly true. Is like our body gives us signals, and not only our physical body, but like our energetic body as well. And then it'll tell us like, hey, shift for a moment your frequency. You're a little spun out. Okay, I need to like come back down. Um, and yeah, there was something, I don't know the thing with your mom, but as soon as you said the ringing, my intuition was thinking about like the clenching of the jaw and like the tension and tightness. And like it meant, typically the jaw represents anger, but for some reason with this particular thing, the flash I got was like that control and holding on and like feeling like,
Mm.
so the ringing being a manifestation of like, that crazy eye that we can do sometimes as like,
That makes perfect sense too of the and I feel like so part of my lesson is like letting go of the control, like okay, this is what I
yes,
like. Oh, I desire, like if I desire something so much that it becomes this attachment and then I'm
yeah,
trying to control and force it to manifest, and it does never works out for me, right? It just creates this tension in my body and this contraction feeling. I'm now, my energy is nowhere near an energetic match for it at this point, so it's just like, letting it go. But I do witness other people in my life who are like so attached to something. I'm just like, if you could just like let it go, like let go a little bit. It'll be okay.
yeah, totally. I was just having a conversation the other day and we were talking about that as well, which is the best things that have happened in our lives that have been the most like, oh, this got me to the next stage of my growth of professional career, or like you get an opportunity to do XYZ or blah, blah, blah. I've never efforted for any of those things to happen. I have efforted for a lot of different things. I was cleaning my house yesterday actually, and I was thinking about, because I was like, oh, it's the turn of the year. Do I want to run another group program? I can do the one-on-ones in my sleep. The group programs take a lot more like conscious planning and holding for me, you
Mhm.
know? So I was like, oh, am I going to do that in the March? Am I going to do a 6 month group, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought about how, man, I have to believe it. I have to like know in my soul and then be a yes 100% to doing something, because that psychic summer school, that took me like 2 months to hold, to launch, and I didn't give up. I was like, I am doing this. Okay, wait, no, now is not the right time, because I wanted to do it at the beginning of the summer, and then I did it at the very end, like towards the fall. But I believed in it so wholeheartedly and fought for it, and it was the most beautiful. Like the even I was seeing, which this is like, I'm gonna be like a proud mom for a second, like people who have like really bad religious programming and blocks, you know,
Mhm.
seeing themselves as witches in different ways in my containers. There's some transmission permission that I give of people who like wanna like be a witch, but they're afraid. And then I was just seeing this woman who took my program did this giant photo shoot where she dressed up as a witch and like took pictures of herself, and like
I
she
love
was
it.
just posting more of them yesterday, and I was like, that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't believe in myself enough to have that like knowing, and then effort enough to like create that container. And those are the places where I think effort is really important. But man, all the other like synchronicities that happen, they happen just because we're like, they're grace. There's like a weird like, here, this is, you know, or like us, like I remember like you messaged me or something, and then we did the da da da, and then like you heard my, and then I put out a song, put out that song because the songs were coming through me, and then you were like, you have to do this podcast. I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna do that. But like that wasn't me like being, and I do have the intention of being on more podcasts, but like my intention is there, and then my being is inspired, and then through the inspired action, you know, other opportunities come. And we're not taught that, and I don't think everybody has to work that way. I think there are certain people that do better working in a more intuitive, feminine kind of what we're talking about. Other people I know are beasts, and they just message everybody that they know all the time for everything, and they just kind of like machine gun their businesses into action, and it works for them. That does not work for me.
Same. Does not work.
Not work for me. It takes me completely out of my power and makes me nuts. Yeah, and so I'm not. I need to less effort, the better. More attraction, more receptivity. It takes a great amount of trust to be able to embody that, and it's not always easy. And some of the qualms that I have with this whole trusting our guides and trusting intuition is that disconnect between the material plane and then really the guides. But then there's like, it really does give you everything that you need, and maybe not so much things that you think you need or want. And then when you realize why you didn't get what you thought you wanted, you're so grateful, because you're like, if I had gotten it then, I would have held it a completely different way
Mhm.
than the maturity that I'm embodying now. And thank God, and I'm fine. And that's been a very eye-opening epiphany that just has happened just in the last month or so for me, of like, oh, I get the path a little bit more now. Thank you so much, so much. So it's really trusting that everything is happening in perfect alignment, um, and listening constantly, and knowing it's not perfect. The process is not like this, like, I think that's another really big misnomer about spirituality, is that people think like, if I did this, then I get all, I mean, that's the secret, right? That's what
Right.
that gave it to us in the 90s or whenever that came out. It was like, win your car with your thoughts. And it's like, not exactly. And there are people who can do that. And I think that might be just lower dimensional witchcraft, to be honest with you. And I don't know if there's karmic repercussions of that or not, but I don't think everybody's on that journey. I think we're all on all different journeys, and what's heartbreaking in this world is now we can see everybody's journey on social media. We compare ourselves constantly to everybody else's stuff, versus like listening to like, what is here? Who are my parents? Like you're saying, what is my roles and responsibilities with them? How do I neutralize and become a clear vessel so that I can show up for them, and then clear whatever I don't want to bring into my life and forward. That's some of the deepest work we can do, is with our own parents.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's a lot to unpack in that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the final conversation really, our topic, the material, I want to kind of go back to that, right? So like we have, there's so many things that are out there of like, you do this, you receive this, you do this, you receive this. And what I personally am finding the same is just like everyone has their own way to materialize, manifest, make manifest, however you like to phrase it, and create in this life. And we have to figure out what our own magic is in that way. Because like you said, I've witnessed people who just do, and they receive, receive, receive whatever it is they're getting after because they're going. But I also think energetically, that going, that determination is like there's no wavering in their action because this is what they're going to do. So I do believe it's an energetic thing as well. But on the
Do
flip
you know,
side,
can I stop you for a moment? Because
yeah,
my coach is turning on because you're doing the, and you had
yep,
mentioned that we didn't actually get into that. So can the last thing be, speak about this for a moment? Because I
yeah,
can, let's see if I can pick up anything that'll help you.
I love it because as you were saying about it, I was like, oh no, not the throat, the throat's
It's
doing it
happening.
again.
It's
It's
happening. So let's
happening.
talk about it in real time.
So in real time, what comes up for me in that is just it's this like these words have not been tested, and so that is like my energetic wobble of like, oh, what's coming through? Do I like overthinking, is this really my truth as I'm speaking it out loud? And so then
Oh,
that's where,
can I tell you the difference of what you're needing in this,
yes,
in that? Okay. So I work a lot with when I first started, like anything, like it was like not anything ever, but like the version of the work that I do today, which I call vocal empowerment. The way that that came through to me was through toning through the chakras. I wanted to like people to tone. So I was guided yesterday, which I have to really write down and follow through with it and do it, to make seed syllable mantra meditation for Insight Timer. I do a lot of lives on Insight Timer every week. For those of you who want to know, anyway, follow me on Insight Timer, you'll see it. So, you know, there's so many people who have made posters and all these things about like the root chakra is seed, it's the and then or the seed syllable is vam, I think. And I have to look it up. I'm not perfect as my yogis say. But what I chose to do was, if your root chakra could make a sound, what sound would it make? And like a lot of times it would be like, oh, like what, like, or like try to move that energy, right? So when you're speaking to me, there's a whole reason why I talked about the chakras. Each chakra has a particular comfort, let's say, of where we're comfortable moving from, and then some of them are underdeveloped. And as you were speaking to me, I could see the hesitancy exists in the sixth chakra, analyzing, watching. Really, there was a cautious tone of looking, which this would, if we were working together, this would map into something in your childhood probably, which would probably map into your past lives or whatever. A cautious tone of like analyzing, judging, making sure of that it's okay, right? That's that energy vibration you just talked
mhm,
about your words. Yeah. What we spoke about in the beginning of the conversation is when you're like so landed into the heart that what you're speaking is an offering of like your truth, because you're practiced in, and that's a big thing that I feel have done in this conversation, have done, not every conversation that I have, by the way, really depends on who's on the other side of the conversation, because I'm
mhm,
super empathic, right? So like if somebody has like that very judgy analytical, like where they're like watching for you to make a mistake, that's where I'm like, I like totally clam up. I'm not able to be in my power. But if somebody's like super generous and like they're really interested in like what I have to say, like you are, then I'm like, I'm really in my vessel and I can trust my heart, and then whatever blah 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 comes out, it comes out. And so for you, let me think if I can do a coaching question. I'm curious, what is the fear of repercussion or judgment at the end of like, if you make a mistake or say the wrong or say something that's not really true, what are you trying to like avoid? Or I don't know if that's the right question, but like,
mm, yes.
yeah, what's on the other side of that fear?
That perfect question, because it's the fear is this in alignment with anything that I've ever taught before?
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, am I creating a new belief that that disregards everything that I've ever taught. And so now I've just like completely shut down anything like
So
that.
actually, you're afraid of contradicting yourself,
Hmm.
is what you're saying. Yeah. So your cautiousness or your mistrust of your own heart actually sounds to me like a fear of imperfection and getting something wrong, right? So then the answer for you, oh, I loved seeing the little, I just literally saw sparkles energetically like over your eyelids and your eyebrows. Like it was like this energy in the sixth chakra that we were talking about that was like hesitancy and bouncing just went like like expand. So it went from contraction to expansion, right?
Hmm.
So then the gift or what I can leave you with is the play of getting it wrong and the play of experimenting. I also have a background. I was a college professor and I teach UI design, which is visual art. I was graphic designer out of college and I did that creative consulting job and did all of that. And so I have students, and I got in trouble for saying this, by the way, so forgive me if this is not politically correct, but I would notice that different nationalities would show up in different ways. So my Asian students would make their type very, very tiny and would very much focus on detail and would be really afraid to use color in an intuitive way. For the off, they were conditioned on like I could see it like lineage wise to be very fearful of making a mistake. And
Hmm.
so I would give them an assignment that was like, make something ugly, make something messy, break all the rules, do things on the complete opposite so that you can have an embodied sensation and feeling of like, it's like taking the finger paints and just being like Pollock, and throwing it at the thing instead of trying to get it right. And then once you break that shell and you realize nothing bad will happen to you, if you do that, it allows your heart to kind of move a little bit more. And then you begin to like use that muscle and expand and trust it. And then you're not as preconceiving a fear, right? And the other part for you that I'm picking up clear cognitively, like up here in my mind, hold on, let me grab it before it goes away. It was like something around the the identification of giving yourself permission. That's what it was. It was giving yourself permission to get something wrong or to be changeable or for you to be in flux is what I'm feeling into right now. Like that was another big piece of my own journey. Allow yourself to be a beginner, allow yourself to be growing. We give ourselves so much more freedom and room when we give ourselves permission to not know what the fuck we're doing. And like really like because we're conditioned like be an expert in your field and like get
Hmm.
that post divisive content and do all these things, and all none of that is like cohesive beautiful empathic leadership. All of that is like traumatizing. People make a lot of money doing that, and so we're all trying to do that too. And I think that's some of the confusion about being authentic. And in the authenticity, we can be like, I don't know, but I'm exploring this idea right now. And so I'll leave you with that, like of like
Oh,
maybe you can get that more into your embodied state is like allowing yourself to be a beginner, allowing yourself to not know, and play with this idea. And something else that I say, especially for me, because when you're an oracle like I am, you have to be very careful. This is like for everybody, by the way, and then we'll close on this, is like too many readers or too many people out there are trying to be the authority. So they just like assign people like, I saw this in you, XYZ. If I see a past life thing in somebody, I say, this could be a metaphor, but what I'm seeing is. And I think giving ourselves like the very clear, like we do not have to, because you have no idea how many clients I have come to me and been like, a medium told me this, an intuitive told me this, and they're running their lives based on information that couldn't be true or could not be true.
right.
And that's what I think gives spirituality and coaching like a bad name. And also for people who care like you do, it makes us afraid to like say or do, and then we're hesitancy, and then we're not really in our power. And if we give ourselves permission 100%, then that is vocal empowerment. You're like, I could be wrong, I'm seeing it like this, tomorrow I might change my mind. That's taking your power back and allowing yourself to show up fully.
Yeah. Oh, Such a beautiful way to end and such a beautiful gift. So thank you so, so much, Michelle. For anyone that wants to like connect with you and learn from you, where's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so I have my website is michellecoutinho.com. So MichelleCoutinho.com. If you want to work with me one-on-one, there's a gold button many places on my site, but in the top menu bar, it says apply for one-on-one. You fill out like 5 questions and you tell me about yourself, and then I book a call with you and I can see right away because I've done this for like 5 years in this current way. So I have literal archetypes. It's so funny. I don't know how to ever talk about this, but I know the archetype. Maybe I could do like an Instagram post where it's like, these are the people who work with me, and I have like different archetypes of different people that I serve. So I know right away if I can be of service to you, and we'll feel it because the energies start to swirl and it's a whole thing. So there's that. And then I am starting my Substack, which only took me a year, and that's michelleinfinity.substack.com. And that's a blog called Tuning to Wisdom, and that's me practicing making my book. I'm on Instagram at Michelle Infinity, and I'm doing a podcast, and I'm also on Spotify now at Michelle Infinity. I have 1 track, and I'm about to have 2, and hopefully 2 more. I'm meeting with a producer tomorrow. So you can find me everywhere online at Michelle Infinity. And I wanted to say one more thing about that. Oh, my podcast, which I'm going to start up in this next year, is called The Healer's Journey. Right now, I have 3 podcast episodes, and my assignment for this next year for me is to buckle down, do more yoga, wake up in the morning and bow and pray and get over all of my resistances to keep myself in the highest vibrational frequency so that I can make more audio transmissions, which are going to be my Spotify channel and also my Insight Timer meditations. And then if you would like to come sit with a group of about 100 souls every week for free on Insight Timer or streamed to my Instagram, I offer these soul sounds, and it's me channeling and kind of being in my magic. I channel my guides show up depending on who's in the audience. The vibrational tone every week is different. And I'm really grateful for that audience and that community because they have grown me so much. I've been doing that for like 2 or 3 years now. And so I have meditations there, and those are all the ways that you can reach out to me. And the most important thing is the newsletter, because those are not on platforms that are owned by other people. And if you're in my world, and then I send you beautiful gifts and things and discounts to work with me one-on-one. So
Fantastic. Beautiful. If you guys feel the soul call, please, please, please reach out to Michelle. She is magic. She is miracles. And with that, friends, I will contact you or talk to you where I talk to you next. You can always go to www.mamateenergy.com to tap into all of the beautiful things we have going on, like the Miracle Mastermind. Ta-ta for now.
bye.